local craft store. And what's special about it is that it opens up and it's got 2 panes of glass. So I imagine you would use this as like a floating photo frame, but we were excited. We loved when we saw it because we knew it would be really fun to do these sort of layered glass painting look. So all that really matters if you want to be painting on glass with me tonight is that you have the double paned look. That being said, if you don't have glass or if you don't have the 2 panes of glass, feel free to use a canvas or just a regular photo frame, whatever you have at home, and you can absolutely still participate in this painting. You'll just do the layers on top of each other on one layer as opposed to on multiple layers. So another option, what I'll be using tonight is just one of these regular floating frames. So I also got this at the craft store or any home decor store or anything like that. But I know a lot of you have these floating around your house too. You may have old photos in them or you're looking to reuse them, repurpose them. And this is just one of those floating frames. I'm going to be very careful to pull this glass out. That has 2 panes of glass. And then you sandwich your photo between it. So that's what I'm going to be painting on tonight. Again, if you're doing this like me, make sure you're being very careful pulling out these pieces of glass. So I'm going to be sandwiching these pieces together and painting on them as I go. So I'm just going to start with one for now, and we'll grab that in a minute. So I've got my 1 pane of glass here. I've also got some palette paper that I'm working on. I've got my paper towels and water basin for cleaning my brushes. And then tonight we'll be using the 10-piece variety set, just like we usually do for our Let's Paint Live. You can see I only have these 2 small brushes. I've got a number 10 flat and I have my number 12 flat. So just a 1/2 inch flat or anything that looks similar to these is totally fine for this painting. We're going to be using it for the whole painting. And then like I said, we're painting on glass. So instead of using our normal folk art acrylics, we're going to be using our folk art multi-surface paints. So these are awesome paints. As the title says, you can use them on multiple surfaces. They're great for canvas and paper and porous materials like that, but they're also great on glass and metal and terracotta and all fabric, all kinds of different surfaces these are great for. So the colors you'll need are magenta, pure orange, daffodil yellow, aqua, cayman blue, true blue, and then this really pretty one called Violet Pansy. In addition to our multi-surface paints tonight, you're also going to need a paint pen. So if you don't have a paint pen, you can feel free to use a liner brush and some white paint. This is going to be the detail here. I'll show you really quick. Oops, the last bit of detail on here is going to be these lines, these really fun doodle lines we put on here. That's going to be with the paint pen. So feel free to use a liner brush if you're comfortable, or if you don't have a paint pen, just know it's going to take you a little bit longer. It'll be much quicker with a paint pen, but it's totally up to you. You can absolutely do this with some white multi-surface paint and a liner brush. And then I also want to mention, I also have my hair dryer here so that I can dry in between coats and before I put my glass together and things like that to make sure that I don't smear anything. Okay. Excuse me. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start painting our bright blooms. So the part we're going to be painting first, I'll show you here. We're actually going to paint this part first. So this really colorful, sort of all of these blocky colors that make up these flowers, make up the like the base of these flowers. That's what we're going to start with. So go ahead and grab your magenta and put a little bit of that onto your palette. And then I'm also going to grab some of my pure orange and put some of that on my palette. And then some of our yellow as well, our daffodil yellow. So I have magenta, pure orange, and daffodil yellow on my palette. And then I'm going to pick up my number 10 flat brush. And as you can see when I just showed you guys, the sort of base of these flowers, it's really fun, it's really loose and doodly. We've been seeing a lot of these like really brightly colored, brushstroke sort of floral glass paintings, and that's what we're really trying to follow here tonight, follow that sort of trend. So that said, the background of these flowers are just going to be kind of like just very sort of reminiscent of flower shapes. It's not going to be super detailed. Don't worry about getting your shapes absolutely perfect because you want it to be very organic and very loose. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab some of my magenta. And I'm going to start painting a flower up here. And it's just going to be sort of a blob, if you will. I don't really know a better way to describe this shape. Just a very loose, you can see I have it a little bit wider. I don't have it perfectly round. Just a very loose floral sort of shape. kind of a cloud. I guess that's a better word than blob. Paint it like it's sort of like a cloud. And then I'll put another one over here. And if you're having trouble, if you feel like you're not getting the paint as opaque as you'd like to, first of all, if you're using the multi-surface, the Folk Art multi-surface paints, it shouldn't be a problem because these are some of the best paints for painting on glass, in my opinion. They are super opaque. They go on slick surfaces really well. But if you do feel like you're having a little bit of trouble, if you're used to painting on canvas, it maybe goes on a little bit better. I would recommend for this particular painting to just put a lot more paint on than you normally would. So however much you would normally apply on your brush onto a canvas, use a little bit more than that, and you should have some better luck with painting this. But of course, you could always go back and do a second coat when it dries. Totally up to you. All right, so I've got my 3 magenta cloud shapes here, and I'm going to go ahead and clean my brush off.
And Debbie says, so much fun painting on glass.
Yeah, thanks. Yay. Yeah, welcome, Debbie. I'm glad you're excited. I'm excited too. Okay, so now we're going to do a couple of our orange flowers. And do the same thing. I'm going to do one in the middle here. And they can overlap a little bit if you want. Again, totally up to you. It's your painting. But of course, we're going to be doing lots of layers on these, so I'm just trying to get it as opaque as I can, but I'm not terribly worried about that right now. As you can see, it's pretty opaque. It's just white behind it. You can see it goes on so well onto this glass. And then maybe I'll do another one down here. I'm kind of following my original composition. And you can feel free to copy my composition, or you can place the flowers wherever you'd like. Totally up to you. This is a really great one. This one is just great for beginners. If you've never painted before, or never painted on glass before, this is a really fun one to start with because it is really loose and it's kind of hard to mess up. So kind of a stress-free painting, which is how I always like to do it. And then I'll do a little tiny bud down here. And maybe another small one there. Just to kind of give some variety to my shapes and sizes. So I'm going to go ahead and clean my brush off.
And we have lots of people watching with us tonight.
Awesome. Welcome, everybody.
Paula Consavage is
hey,
watching.
Paula.
She's one of our favorites.
She is.
Hey, Paula.
She definitely is. Hi.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so for this third color of flowers, we're going to make sort of a pretty coral color. So we're doing a little bit of mixing. So I'm going to go ahead and grab some of my magenta, just a little bit. And I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to it. And again, we're looking for sort of a pretty coral color. I'm going to add a little bit more yellow because I want it to be a little bit lighter. And it will be kind of orangey, but it'll be slightly pinker than our orange color. Well, that's what we're going for anyway. I went a little too orange. I'm going to put some more pink back in there. That's kind of how I always like to mix colors. I just add a little bit of each color at a time so I can kind of, see as I go. I can kind of see what color I'm looking for and if I'm getting close or not. I don't like to do giant globs of paint because then you're just wasting paint and you just keep getting this big, pile of paint that's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and you're still not getting the color you want. So that's why I like to start small. And I have a good idea of how much of each color I used in there, so in case I need to remix some more. So I'm going to do a flower up here with this sort of corally color. And then I'm going to do another little guy over here. And then I'll mix a little bit more actually. Do another flower here on the bottom.
And Michelle has a question. Do you need to shake the paint?
No, you shouldn't need to shake the paint. Folk art paints, they don't usually separate. It won't hurt the paint if you do feel like maybe you're separated a little bit. If it's kind of an older bottle, you can shake it. It won't hurt it, but usually you don't need to, no. And maybe a couple little buds here and there to sort of just balance out the whole composition. Maybe I'll do a little pink one up here. Oh, that was a lot. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and rinse my brush off. Again, super duper loose. Don't feel like you need to make any perfect because there really is no way to make it perfect. They're just so loose and that's just sort of the nature of this painting. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab some of my Aqua and put it onto my palette. We're going to start painting some of the leaves around our flowers. And I'm also going to grab some of my True Blue, just a little bit. I'm going to pick up my number 10 flat again. This is the one we were just using. And I'm going to use, I'm going to put a little bit of Aqua for some leaves, just to mix it up a little. We are going to mix a green color, but we're going to start with just a little bit of Aqua. And these are just going to be very sort of classic leaf shapes, just sort of like football-y, just how you would think of when you think of a leaf shape. And we're just going to do a few here and there. Again, like I said, this painting is like super loose, but we do want to give the impression of a bouquet of flowers or a garden of flowers or something like that. So we're going to add some leaves. And don't forget, we want to leave some space for our green leaves. So just a couple here and there. Okay. I'm going to rinse my brush off. And then for our green color, we're going to mix sort of like a really bright lime green color. So I'm going to grab some yellow. And I'm going to put a little bit of my True Blue in there. So we want mostly yellow with just a touch of True Blue. We want it to be sort of a yellowy green. You could even put a little bit of Aqua in there if you want to brighten it up. That makes a really pretty green. Okay, so I'm going to use this color. I'm going to wipe off some of the excess because whenever I mix paint with my brush, I always like to rinse it off and sort of start fresh before I start painting back on my palette or my glass or whatever it is that I'm painting on. I don't want to have all of that paint in my brush. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this green, and we're going to keep adding leaves, just like our Aqua ones. You can do little bundles of leaves, or sort of just leaves standing on their own, but we just want to add a few more in here. We're going to continue to make our composition nice and full. So again, in case you're just joining us, I'm just painting on a single pane of glass. This glass came out of I should have said this, I don't think I said, it was an 8x10 floating picture frame. So the kind of frame you probably already have at home where you sandwich a photo or a piece of art between the two panes of glass. That's what this is. And I just pulled the glass out and I'm painting on one of them right now. And we're going to paint more on the other one and sort of sandwich them together and put them back into the frame. Okay, I think that's enough leaves. Go ahead and rinse my brush off. So now we're going to do some of those really fun, loose brush strokes that sort of fill up the entire background of this painting that you saw in the final painting. This is really fun. This is another really good opportunity to just be very loose and very bold with your brush strokes. So this is a really fun part of the painting. So the colors you want to make sure you have on your palette. I've got my True Blue. I've got my Cayman Blue. Oh no, I'm sorry, I got my Aqua. I want to add some Cayman Blue. And then I also want to add some of my Violet Pansy. So again, the colors you should have in your palette now are your True Blue, Aqua, Cayman Blue, and Violet Pansy. And what we're going to do with these colors is we're going to start, you can start really with any color you'd like because we're going to be adding all four of them. Start adding really big, bold brush strokes that fill up the background. And I'm actually going to switch to my wider brush. Sorry guys, I keep switching it up on you. I keep changing my mind. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab my, just slightly wider, my number 12 flat. So this is like a 1/2 inch flat. Just slightly bigger for bigger brush strokes. So we're going to do really big, bold brush strokes to sort of just fill up the background of these florals. So again, you can start with any color. We're doing sort of the cooler colors we have in our palette right now to fill up these. And the reason I kind of did it this way is because everything is so loose and everything is so painterly that I wanted to have a way to make sure you could tell the foreground from the background. So a way to make sure you know what is the flowers and what is not the flowers. So I kind of, did the warmer colors for the flowers, and then the very cool colors will be the background here.
And Jessie, we have a couple questions.
Okay.
What is the paper you're painting on?
Oh, this is just a big piece of palette paper. So
Okay.
I always have like my little book of palette paper, but I borrowed one of Andy's big ones so that I could put my glass on it. just so you could see it more clearly, so you can see the white behind the paint and behind the glass. I didn't want to have this butcher block just because I was afraid it would be kind of busy and it would be hard to see where we were painting. So just a piece of palette paper. That's all I've got here.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure. Don't tell Andy I stole his palette paper. Just kidding. He won't mind.
Won't tell.
Everybody, Paula, make sure you keep it a secret.
Yes.
Just kidding. He wouldn't mind whatsoever.
He wouldn't.
Okay, so I just did my true blue, so I'm going to do some of my Cayman blue now. And again, you don't really have to have any rhyme or reason or order to what order you paint these colors in, because they're all going to go on there. You can kind of do some overlapping if you want. You can see I'm just doing big, different shapes and sizes of brush strokes. I just want to have a nice variety to make the color really bold and painterly and colorful.
And Wendy says, this looks so fun and cheerful.
Oh, thanks.
Yay.
Perfect painting to get ready for spring. I know everybody's ready for the warmer weather.
For sure.
I know I am, yeah. Now I'm going to do some of my purple. And again, you know, with our folk art multi-surface paints, it's really easy to get like a nice opaque coverage. But if you're not getting the opaque coverage, that's okay, because that's kind of the beauty of this. We want to be able to sort of see those layers and see through the glass. So if you are seeing a little bit of transparency in your paint, that is okay. Don't stress about that, because it's going to be really beautiful when we're done. You're going to see light shining through it. It's going to be great to sort of set this painting like by a window, like on a windowsill or something. The sun coming through is going to be really, really pretty.
And Elaine says she likes how you can blend the paints on the paper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's what's great about this palette paper. I love using palette paper for my paintings. It's just really easy. It feels like less waste than using like paper plates or especially styrofoam plates. I love to have a book of palette paper on hand.
Yes.
And now I'm picking up some Aqua and adding some Aqua in. And we want to kind of keep our brushstrokes fairly close together because you want to look like the composition is full. We don't want it to be too bare in between. And again, like I said, feel free to overlap. If you feel like you want to do some overlapping, that can be really pretty too.
And just to clarify, you're painting on glass, not on the paper.
Right, here, let me lift it up. In case you guys just joined us, I am painting on a pane of glass. And where I got this, ooh, there we go. Where I got this is from one of those floating frames. So again, be really careful if you're painting on just this plain piece of glass like me. It's just one of those floating frames that you can get at any home decor store or craft store where the photo is sandwiched between two panes of glass. That's what this is. And I'm just painting on one of the panes now, and then we're going to add more colors to the other pane of glass. I just made a big old mess here. That's okay. That's why I've got paper down. But yeah, we've just been seeing all over Pinterest and Instagram. We've been loving all of the glass painting we've seen, all the different layered styles that people are painting this season. So we thought it'd be really fun to do this for Let's Paint Live because we've been seeing it absolutely everywhere, and we love it so much.
Yes, it's gorgeous.
It is. It's really fun. It's something really different. If you're kind of tired of painting on canvases, this is a nice little break from that. Okay, so I'm just going to keep filling this in. I'm going to keep adding colors here and there just to make sure I have a nice full composition in the background especially.
We have a lot of people watching with us.
Awesome. Welcome, guys.
And they're excited to see what you're doing.
Woohoo. This is a fun one.
Michelle would like to know, did you prep the glass with alcohol or anything?
That is a great question, and for some reason I always forget to say this before I paint on glass for these classes. Yes, I did. Whenever I paint on glass or any sort of slick surface for that matter, whether it's ceramic or something like that, I always either wipe the surface with isopropyl alcohol, and what that does is it removes any oils that may be on the glass from touching it, from your fingers, from things, and just any like lint and debris and things like that. Or you can just use soap and water, so you can wash it. Again, when you're using, raw glass like this, like with the raw edge, be very careful. But you also can wash it in the sink with just some dish soap or hand soap even, and some warm water. That works too. You just want to make sure you get those oils off of the glass before you start painting. And the reason you want to get those off is because those kind of keep the paint from adhering as well as you want them to. We want to have really nice grip on our paint so it doesn't scratch off later.
And your mom has joined us.
Oh, hey, Mom. Welcome.
Yay.
Awesome. Okay, so I've kind of finished my background. I'm good with, all the brush strokes I have. I feel like it's full enough for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding a little bit of sort of highlighting and shading. Again, I'm going to use that term very loosely to our flower shapes, just to add a little bit of dimension so they're not so flat. So the way to do that, again, I'm using that term very loosely. It's going to be a very loose sort of idea of highlighting and shading, but I want to have a lighter color for each color and then a darker color for each color. So we're going to kind of, use some artistic license here in mixing those colors. We just want to be able to see it. There's 3 colors in each flower. So I'll show you what I mean. So we'll start with our magenta flowers. So to do a darker color, I'm going to grab some magenta and I'm going to mix it with a touch of purple. And that's just going to make a little bit darker version. It's still going to be pinky. It's going to be a little purpley though, but it's going to match and it's going to be a darker version of that magenta. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to just do a brush stroke following the bottom edge of my flower shape. You can see there it just makes a really very subtle sort of shadow effect on that flower. Like I said, I'm using the term very loosely when I say we're highlighting and shading. Do the same thing for all of my magenta flowers.
And these are all acrylics, right?
Yeah, these are all acrylics. These are our Folk Art multi-surface paints, Folk Art multi-surface acrylics, and they are just formulated to work really well on slick surfaces where you could absolutely just use our regular Folk Art acrylics. It just won't have the same adhesion that this does. For decorative purposes, especially if you're just going to put this in a frame and hang it on the wall, you could totally use the regular acrylics. These are just going to be way more durable, and they just go on so beautifully because they're especially formulated for surfaces like this. Okay, so now I'm going to do the darker color on all of my orange ones. So I'm going to pick up some orange, and I'm going to add a little bit of magenta. Again, when we're doing these colors, we're taking a little bit of artistic liberties with the color mixing, but we just want sort of a darker orange. So I just did my orange and magenta mixed together, about 1 part of each, and I'm going to follow the bottom of that shape. And don't forget your little shapes too if you added any sort of little buds like I did. You can see I'm being super loose with it. Go ahead and rinse my brush off. And then last but not least, we're going to do the same thing for our corally color. So I'm going to mix some magenta and orange. I'll do a little bit more magenta than orange this time. So it's a little pinkier than our other dark color that we used for our orange flowers.
And if you missed any of the colors, you can go to plaidonline.com and find all of the colors for this Let's Paint Live, plus any of our other Let's Paint Live.
Yeah, definitely. We've got a ton of Let's Paint Lives. We've got dozens in our library, so be sure to go under the Let's Paint tab on plaidonline.com, and you'll be able to find all of Andy's content and Donna Dewberry and all of our Let's Paint Lives as well as supply lists, like Lindsay said. Okay, so we kind of have all of our shadows on our flowers. Now we're going to add some of our highlights. So I'm going to grab some more of my magenta here.
And Kathy would like to know, can you use an acrylic panel instead of glass to paint on?
Sure. I'm not sure what you mean by oh, you mean like a piece of plastic like a plexiglass sort of thing? Yeah, you totally can. The Folk Art multi-surface paints will work really well on something like that. Okay, so we're going to do the lighter color, so I'm going to grab some magenta, and I'm going to grab a little bit of my yellow. We've kind of been mixing this one color a few times. We've done magenta and yellow a lot. I guess we could have just mixed one big batch and then used it, but just kind of thinking as I go. Okay, so this peachy color, so I'm going to put a little bit of this on the top of my magenta. Just a little bit. Flowers, again, super duper loose. And then I'm going to use that same color, but I'm going to add a little bit more yellow for my orange and corally colored flowers. So I'm going to do the same color for those. You can see, again, I'm being super duper loose. I'm just being kind of quick with my brush strokes. I really want to have that really pretty sort of quick, loose look for this painting. Okay, guys, so we're kind of coming to the end of this panel here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to dry this off just so I can start to paint on the back. And whenever I use a hairdryer to dry my paint, I put on the highest air setting, and then I switch between hot and cold. So I'll start off with the hot setting, and when I feel like my painting is getting a little bit too warm, I'll switch over to the cool blast setting, and I'll kind of go back and forth. So again, I just want to remind you, if you're using a piece of glass like this with raw edges like I am, please be very careful when you're picking it up. Okay, so go ahead and dry my painting now. I'm going to see if my painting is dry. I'm just kind of touching some of the areas where I can see there's lots of paint and make sure that those areas are dry. Pretty dry, but I'm just going to go another minute or so to make sure that, because I'm going to flip my glass over and I don't want it to smear. Okay, so that should be good. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to very carefully turn my glass over. You can see here it's just as pretty on the back. So that's kind of the beauty of painting on glass. You kind of get two paintings out of it. So what we're going to do in the back is just add a little bit of color to sort of boost the colors in the front, if that makes any sense at all. So we're just going to add a little bit more color here to sort of just be another layer in this beautiful painting that we're making. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mix a peachy color. I'm going to grab some more of my yellow. And I'm going to mix mostly yellow with just a touch of magenta. Again, yellow and magenta. We've been mixing a lot of that. But just a touch of magenta, not very much for this one. Maybe a little more. We want a nice, bright, peachy color. Okay, it's kind of like a tangerine-y color. It's pretty. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to wipe off some excess paint. Don't want all that paint on my brush. And what we're going to do with this color is we're just going to paint, again, very loosely, I'm going to say that a million times, just over all of our flower area. And that's just going to make those really pop. So I'm going to pick up some of that and I'll show you what I mean. It's going to feel very strange because it's going to feel like we're painting over our painting. But don't forget, our painting's on the other side. So if you mess up, you could always wipe it off. So it's gonna feel a little weird, like, oh my gosh, we're just painting over everything. But don't forget, we're not. So I'm going to go right over this area. And I'm going to fill in all of this area with this pretty tangerine-y peach color. And don't forget, I'm just going behind the flowers right now. Just very loosey-goosey. And I already ran out of paint, so I'm going to mix some more. I'm going to keep painting behind the flower areas.
And Catherine would like to know, what can I use instead of magenta?
Instead of magenta, if you have red and white at home, you can mix a little bit, mostly red with a touch of white, and you'll get a nice dark pink color. That will be beautiful for this. Or you could always use like a purple or something if you just want to switch it up a little. Totally up to you. But yeah, if you wanted to just get this color, just use a touch of red with your yellow, and you'll get something similar to this color. Just going to mix a little bit more. Just make sure I have a nice, going to get it as opaque as I can. You can see there's some brush stroke showing, but don't forget, this is going to be on the back. You're just going to see a bit of this color shining through those flowers, so if it's not terribly opaque, do not worry. I'm just going to get it as opaque as I can. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and rinse my brush off. And then we're going to do something very similar around the background area, but we're going to use a cool color. Don't forget, you kind of did all the warm colors in the center, and then we did all the cool colors around the outside and in the background. So for this one, I'm going to mix some of my Cayman blue and yellow. I'm going to grab some more yellow because I've got some pink in that one. I don't want to get it into my blue, so some fresh daffodil yellow. Ready to get a nice greeny color. You can even put a little more blue in it if you want it to be bluer. Yeah, that's nice. We just want it to be a little bit different than the colors we already have, so that it doesn't just blend in. That's nice. It's a really nice, cool, bright green color. And we're just going to do the same thing around the background area. Just getting that nice layer of color behind there. And then once we turn it around, we're going to dry it first, of course. But once we flip it again, you're going to see how much that makes all of these colors pop and how you'll really be able to see the layers between the glass. Because this glass is, super thin. It's maybe 2 millimeters thick. It's not very thick at all. But you really can still see the difference between the layers of just painting on the front versus on the back. You really can see that it's on a different layer. And then once you paint the other pane of glass with our paint pen and do all the details, you're just going to have this really beautiful layered glass piece. And hopefully it inspires you to just do any kind of painting like this. It doesn't need to be this style or this color palette. Just kind of keeping in mind that this technique for painting on different panes of glass and having that layered look, I'd love to see some of the ideas you guys can come up with.
Everyone's very excited to see what you have to do tonight. But I think this is a really great technique.
Yeah.
And I am super excited to see what everyone else has to do.
I know, me too. I know you guys are going to have some great ideas using this layered glass technique, so.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to dry this again. Just the same way we dried it the first time, and then we will flip it over. So again, make sure to pick up your glass very carefully, especially if you have this raw piece of glass, this raw edged piece of glass like I do. Okay, I think that's probably pretty good. So we can flip it over and you can see how we've got this really awesome layered look. You can see the colors coming through, but you can still definitely see they're sort of on a different plane. So just a really fun technique for painting on glass. So this layer is totally done. So now we're going to go ahead and we are going to grab our other pane of glass. And I treated this in the same way. I wiped it with some isopropyl rubbing alcohol. And I'm going to carefully line it up with my painting to make sure they're nice and lined up. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab my paint pen. So any kind of paint pen will work for this. If your paint pen works on glass, which really most of them do, it will work for this. So I'm using white. You could totally use a color. Use pink or blue or yellow or whatever color you'd like. Even black would be kind of cool. But yeah, any paint pen's fine for this. You know, your local craft store probably has a great selection of paint pens. They all do. So so yeah, some of these are water-based. I think this one here is not water-based. I think this one might be solvent-based, but again, any kind will work for this. So I'm going to go ahead and shake my paint pen and make sure I've kind of got it flowing, and it's flowing nicely. So I have kind of a chunky guy here, so I'm just going to use the very tip, the chiseled tip. And what I'm going to do for my flowers is do sort of a doodly effect on top to sort of give it another layer, another piece of detail, and to give it a little bit more of a detailed look. So I just want to remind you, if you don't have a paint pen at home, don't stress. Just go ahead and grab one of your thin brushes and grab some white paint, and you can do the exact same technique. Of course, it will take you a little bit longer than just doodling with a paint pen, but you can still get the same beautiful fine lines and the same exact look. So again, if you don't have a paint pen, don't stress about it, but we are going to use a paint pen now. Let me close this so I can try to match it to my original one. Okay, so I'm going to start with the leaves. So for the leaves, I'm just going to do, again, very loosely, I keep saying it, I'm going to kind of outline it and then do a squiggle in the center. So again, using the tip, I'm going to outline it loosely and then do a little squiggle in the center. And like I said, we're just going to keep doing these really fun doodly lines all over it, kind of just keeping it really loose. Pretend like you're, back in high school or middle school and you're doodling in your notebook. You just want it to be really loose and just have fun with it. So I'm going to do my other little leaf up here. And you don't need to add the squiggle to all of them if you don't want to. And you can see how quick and loose I'm being. I'm not really thinking about it at all, because that's kind of the doodly look that we're going for. And I'm just using, again, I have sort of a bulky paint pen here. This is the one that I like. So I'm just using the very tip of it. And you could even add some extra leaves if you wanted to. Even add some ones you didn't paint. That could be kind of fun. All right, so then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start adding some detail to my flowers. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend they're sort of like maybe like daisy flowers, or maybe even like, pansies or something like that. I'm going to add a little bit of a squiggle in the middle to just kind of mark the center. So a little squiggle here. You can see there it's kind of like a little flower, another little cloud shape, but just much tinier. I'm going to do some little squiggles in the center of each of these flowers. Again, you can see I'm being really quick with it. And I'm being quick on purpose, not just because, I've done it a million times. That's not it. Even if this was my first time, I would do it quick. And that's because I really want it to look loose. The quicker you do it, the looser it's going to look. And that's what we want. And then so lastly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some petals to my flowers. And I'm going to do just really, again, quick, I know, really loose sort of outlines of petals. And I'm going to have them overlap just to make them look really funky and really doodly. So I'll show you what I mean on this top flower. I'm going to do a petal here, and I'm going to follow the edges of the shapes too. A petal there, so you can see, super loose, and then I'm going to overlap it and do a petal next to it. Kind of almost like a clover petals is kind of what I'm going for. Again, just super, super loose, really fun, just have fun with it.
And Elaine is wondering, did the paint pens come in a lot of colors?
Yeah, paint pens comes in so many colors. So, whatever craft store is local to you, if it's, Hobby Lobby, Target, Michael's, Joann, Walmart, whatever it is that's near you, they all have amazing paint pen selections. So there's always tons of colors. And like I said, you can get water-based, you can get solvent-based ones. It just really is up to your preference. But you can get, really fancy, expensive ones. You can get really, affordable ones. Just check out your local store, or even online, Michaels.com, Walmart.com. All of those stores have awesome websites that are doing really quick shipping right now. So yeah, check out those websites if you're not going to the store. But yeah, they all have amazing selections of paint pens, colors, and just tons of variety. Again, so I'm kind of overlapping them to make them look really doodly. And you can see again, I know I keep saying this, but I'm being quick on purpose because the more time I spend on it trying to get it perfect, the more perfect it's going to look, and that is not what we want. We want it to look doodly. Just super loose. It's just really fun to do it. If you've I've done like big canvases with this sort of doodle technique. We have a really fun video on TikTok right now. If you did not know, Plaid has a TikTok channel where I did a canvas of just doodle flower painting, and it was just so fun. It just kind of like turn your brain off. Takes me back to like my middle school days, you know, writing notes to my friends, doodling in my notebook. But it's just a really fun technique to just add a little something to your paintings. All right, guys, so when you're done doodling, make sure to sign your name on your painting because that is it for our bright blooms. So I'm going to leave it because it's a little bit wet right now. I'm not going to hold it up. But I just want to thank you guys for watching. If you are not a member of our Let's Paint with Plaid Facebook group, make sure to check that out. Just search it right here on Facebook in the search bar, Let's Paint with Plaid. It's an amazing community of artists. Whether this was your first painting ever or you've been painting for many years, we'd love to have you. We have got tons of great people in there. Donna Dewberry, Andy Jones, I'm in there, Lindsay's in there. Tons of people to interact with and look at their artwork and have them look at yours as well. Don't forget, we're going to be back next month painting a really fun, another floral painting. It's going to be called Modern Tulips. So check that out. It's going to be Kirsten Jones teaching it. The event listing will be posted right after this ends. And we will see you then. Thanks, guys.